Hello, this is Shanku and welcome to chapter 10 of the microservices with Spring Boot tutorial. So in this previous chapter, we talked about the Zuul proxy API gateway, and we saw how we can use Zuul for load balancing and routing the APIs inside our microservices ecosystem when exposing them to the outside world. And in this chapter, we're going to take a look at the various filters that are available with Zuul. So Zuul basically has 4 standard filter types. Pre-filter runs before the request is routed. So if we have some scenarios where we would need to validate the incoming headers and to authenticate and authorize the requests, we can do that inside pre-filters. And if the requests are not authentic, or if the headers are not correct, we can simply send out the response from the API gateway without having to route to our microservices API inside the microservices ecosystem. And then we have the route filters. So route filters can handle the actual routing of the request. And we have post filters. Post filters run after the request has been routed. And then we have the error filters. So error filters run if an error occurs in the course of handling the request. And Spring Cloud Netflix picks up any bean that is of type Zuul filter and is available in the application context as a filter. So let's take a look at the various components that we have inside a microservices ecosystem. So we'll be using the same bunch of projects that we had used in our previous chapter, and we'll be using the configuration server, we'll be using the discovery server, the Eureka discovery server, we'll be using the API gateway project, and we'll be using the location service and the product service. So if you're not already familiar with configuration servers, discovery servers, and Fiend clients and APIs, I would recommend you to take a look at the previous chapters in this series and get yourself accustomed to these components or to these terms. And let's open up this project, which essentially serves as the API gateway inside a microservices ecosystem, and take a look at this project. So we'll first open up the POM for this project and take a look at its dependencies. So let's go inside the dependencies tab and take a look at the dependencies for this project. So first up, we have a Spring Cloud Netflix Eureka client. So this project would register itself as a client to the Eureka discovery server. And then we have a Spring Cloud Starter Netflix Zuul. So this project would act as an API gateway, or this project would use Zuul proxy API gateway to act as an API gateway for our microservices ecosystem. And then we have Spring Boot Starter Test. And let's take a look at the classes that we have inside this project. So first up, we have the API gateway application.java class, and this is the entry point for this application. And we have the main method inside this class, and we have these 3 annotations on top of this class. So we have the Spring Boot application annotation, which makes this application a Spring Boot application. We have the enable Eureka client annotation on top of this class. So this makes this application a client to the Eureka registry server or Eureka discovery server that we'll be using. And then we have enable Zuul proxy. So that would enable the Zuul proxy functionality of this API gateway application. And apart from that, we have another class called pre-filter. So this is basically the pre-filter that we talked about a while ago that Zuul provides. And we have this Zuul filter class that is extended by this pre-filter class. So Zuul filter is again a class provided by Zuul, and we have this annotation on top of this class, component annotation on top of this class. So this would be registered as a bean inside the application context when the application context is loaded. And we have a few overridden methods here. So we have the run method here, that is an overridden method, and the run method contains the functionality of the filter. So inside this pre-filter, we can actually do the validation for the headers. Headers can be validated here, and then we can actually do the authorization and authentication checks before the request is routed to the respective APIs inside our microservices ecosystem. So this basically, the run method basically contains the functionality that the filter is supposed to perform. And then we have this overridden method should filter, and it has a return type of boolean, so it contains the logic to determine when to run this filter. So we can have some logic set up here, and for the demo we have just returned true from here, but we can have some logic based on which we can decide whether to run this filter or not. And then we have the filter order. So filter order gives the order in which the filter is to be run relative to the other filters, and we have set the filter order as 1 in this method. And then we have the filter type. So filter type returns a string that stands for the type of this filter. So this is supposed to be a pre-filter. That is the reason we return pre from this class or this method, right? And that is all for the API gateway project. And also let's take a look at the application.properties inside this project. So we have the name of the application as API gateway, and this is supposed to be running on 9393. So that is what we have mentioned inside this application.properties file. So we already have our components up and running, and let's take a look at the Eureka server dashboard and see the components that are registered with the discovery server. So this is our Eureka server dashboard, and we have the API gateway, the configuration server, the Eureka server, the location service, and the product service registered with the discovery server. And the product service would internally be calling the location service using Theme client and get the location details for the particular product, and return the combined result of the two APIs. So let's try to test this API product service using the API gateway, and let's go to Postman to test the API. So if we go back to our Eureka server dashboard, we can see product service is running on port 8878, but inside our Postman we have the port as 9393. So this is the port for our API gateway. The API gateway is running on 9393, and we won't directly be hitting the product service. We'd rather be calling the product service. We have the API gateway, and that is why we have the URL for the API gateway mentioned here, and this is the name of the service that we are trying to call, or this is the name of the service. This is the name of the API with which this particular API is registered with the discovery server. So it is registered with the name product service with the discovery server. So that is what we have mentioned here, and this is the endpoint that we are trying to fetch. So that is API/v1/product, and let's click on send. So we can see we have the product service the result here for the product service API, and we have the product details here, and we have the product name, product ID, and the location details. So the location is being fetched by another API, which is essentially the location service API, and that gives us the location details for the particular product. And if we go to our console, we can see we have this getting printed, headers are being validated, authentication and authorization checks are being done. So that is getting printed from this class pre-filter. So before the request is routed to the product service API, the headers are being validated. So instead of printing on the console, we can actually validate the headers inside this one method for the pre-filter, and we can actually authorize and check for the authentication and authorization of the request that is being sent or that is coming in before routing it to the product service API. And that is basically how we can use Zuul filters to perform operations before requests are routed to the API inside a microservices ecosystem. And we have other kinds of filters as well. So we have the route filter, the post filter, and the error filter. So if we want to set up some global exception handling at the API gateway, we can do that using the error filter and send out an elegant error response instead of just spitting out the error response from the API. So that is how we can use Zuul filters for performing operations before, while, and after calling the APIs inside a microservices ecosystem. So that is all for this chapter, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy, please give it a thumbs up, and thanks for watching.